Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is your host Majestic speaking with another episode of MechWarrior Online here. And today is a very special edition of MechWarrior because I want to share a quick tip with you guys that revolves around one of the brand new meta builds that was just discovered as of the latest patch update earlier last week. So I had a couple of you guys sending in emails or messages to me asking, before the patch update, I barely ever saw the summoner out there on the battlefield. You saw it every now and then, but it just wasn't as frequent as you're seeing it now. And now, post-patch update, you're seeing it almost every match. And not only are you seeing the summoner, but you're seeing this variant in particular. The Summoner M variant, which is one of the two customer appreciation variants. So this video is simply going to go through how this mech is built, why it's being used, in what capacity it's being used out there on the battlefield, and essentially going through just why you're seeing it so often, why people are using it, and what was actually figured out to apply to this mech that makes it so beneficial to use out there on the battlefield. Because before the patch update, really, the Summoner didn't have that much to offer for a heavy. But now, post-patch update with this particular variant and the omnipods that come with it and its counterparts, this mech has essentially become completely redefined at this point. So let's dive into the garage here and check out the laundry list of quirks that actually apply to this variant in particular. You have ERPPC cooldown 5%, ERPPC velocity 30%, energy heat generation 10%, energy cooldown 5%, energy range 5%, LBX spread reduction of 10%, LBX velocity of 30%, and ballistic cooldown of 10%. Holy cow, that is quite the laundry list of quirks that you would probably expect to see more frequent in an inner sphere heavy rather than a clan heavy. So essentially, right off the bat, you know that this variant is definitely going to bring something else to the table that makes it more appealing to use out there on the battlefield than how it has been in the past. So let's dive into the actual loadout itself. In front of you, I have a completely stock Summoner M variant with only the M's omnipods. I stripped off all of the weapons on this mech so that you can see how it's built from the ground up. Now let's first check out the torso and the positioning of the hardpoints in those torsos. If you look at the left torso, if we're going to cater to ERPPCs, which is what this mech was essentially used for before the patch, but now with all these buffs and quirks and everything, it's become even more of, a meta. At this point, let's call it what it is, a meta. So before we actually dive into the build that's inevitably going to be placed on this variant, I want to point out the profile of the Summoner. Now you can see it here in the background, and automatically what sticks out to me is how low slung in nature these arms are. And pre-patch update, that's what the primary use of this actual mech was, is to pop-tart PPC utilizing the two energy hardpoints in either the right arm or the left arm, and people got comfortable with it. Some people got more comfortable than others, and some people decided, you know what, I'm going to try and find an alternative that suffices as a pop-tart PPC mech. Now, where the two brand new variants come into play, the M variant and the F variant, is completely game-changing. Whereas before, if you were to use this as a jumping Pop-Tart PPC mech, you had to expose the entire top half of the mech in order to get your two PPC shots off in either this right or left arm. And a lot of times you saw a lot of your PPC rounds going into the dirt or the snow or whatever the situation was. Where these two brand new variants come into play are the torsos, and in particular the positioning. That's what I want to focus in on here. So let's look at the right torso and what's available to us with the hardpoints. So as we can see here, there are no other variants except for the F variant, the other customer appreciation variant that has an energy hardpoint in that right torso. Bingo! So there we have the F variant's right torso with that energy hardpoint in there. Now, I would also like a second high-mounted energy hardpoint. Are there any other mechs out there that have even one energy hardpoint available in the left torso? And I'm scrolling through the list here, and no one else is available except what we already have, the M variant. The M variant does have an energy hardpoint in that left torso. So now we have our dual ERPPC setup as we had before, except now they're in the high mounts. And if you see again on the profile, you're changing the fact that the ERPPCs were low slung in at first before the patch update, but now there is a possibility of placing the dual ERPPC build in these high mounts right underneath the cockpit, leaving a lot less of the mech needing to be exposed in order to get those shots off. But we're not even finished yet. We haven't even gone through the omnipods available to us in each arm that might benefit this mech even more with the intended build that we plan to place on it with the dual ERPPCs. So now let's look at each arm individually and see which omnipod variant has the best suitability to amplify these quirks even more than they already are. And first we'll start with the right arm. Now let's first look at the Summoner B's right arm. We have LRM and SRM spread and velocity bonuses of 2%. But we're not utilizing any missile hardpoints on this particular variant, so we're not going to take this omnipod into consideration. If we move on to the next variant, the C variant's right arm, we have energy heat generation bonus of 5% and laser duration bonus of 5%. So the energy heat generation bonus will apply despite the fact that we're using ERPPCs, because this is a generic energy quirk. It applies to all energy weapons. But the laser duration bonus of 5% will not apply because we are not using lasers. So if you take it into consideration, energy heat generation bonus of 5% overall, it's okay, but I still think we can do better. So let's check out the rest of this list. Now let's look at the D variant's right arm. We have energy cooldown bonus of 5%, another generic energy quirk that will apply in this case to our ERPPCs. If you take a look at the Summoner as a whole, as a 70-ton heavy, you're only utilizing 12 tons to actually place weapons on this thing, and then filling the rest of it with double heat sinks. So it's extremely heat efficient out there on the battlefield. And now if we have a cooldown quirk that can fire off these PPCs with that heat efficiency already intact, you have a monster out there on the battlefield. So we're starting to talk here. It's not a lot. It's 5% bonus. I think we still might be able to do better. So let's check out the other two. We have the F variant. UAC range bonus of 5% and ER laser range of 5%. We're not utilizing either of these weapon types between the UACs or lasers. We have ERPPCs, so we're not even going to take this one into consideration. But now we're down to the final two omnipods that we could potentially utilize on this mech, and that's between the stock M variant's right arm and the Summoner Prime's right arm. But let's check out the summary quirks for themselves. Let's look at the Prime right arm first. We have structure bonus of 11%, energy cooldown 5%, ERPPC velocity of 30%, and ERPPC cooldown of 5%. So it's definitely better than the Summoner D variant's right arm, which only gives us that energy cooldown of 5%, because this also not only has an energy cooldown bonus of 5%, but the ERPPC cooldown on top of that, along with the PPC velocity and a structure bonus. Now let's look at the M's right arm. And if I highlight over it real quick, you'll see it's the exact same thing as the Prime right arm. So it does not matter which omnipod you use between the M right arm and the Prime right arm. They are the exact same thing from a quirk summary bonus. So for the intents and purposes of this video, we're just going to switch this out anyway and put the Summoner Prime's right arm on there. And we will save this just as a build thus far. And at this point, we also have a modified quirk summary. So running through that real quick, we have energy range bonus of 5% that comes from utilizing the M variant. Then we have an energy cooldown bonus of 5% by using the M variant as well, along with the Summoner Prime's right arm energy cooldown bonus of 5%. And if you were to actually elite this mech, you would get another 5% cooldown bonus. So that's a 15% generic energy cooldown bonus. Stacking on top of that, between the M variant and the Prime variant's right arm, we have ERPPC cooldown of 5% that comes from the M variant, and the Summoner Prime's right arm that also gives us a 5% ERPPC cooldown bonus. So in total, between the generic energy cooldown quirks summing up to 15%, along with the ERPPC cooldowns that sum up to 10%, we have a grand total of 25% energy cooldown by utilizing those 2 ERPPCs that we plan to place between these 2 torsos. Now, as for the 2 remaining quirks that we have here, one that was mentioned earlier in the video that just comes from utilizing the M variant is the energy heat generation bonus of 10%, but the one that really amplifies the usage of this mech out there on the battlefield is the ERPPC velocity bonus. We get a 30% bonus from utilizing the M variant and another 30% by using the Summoner Prime's right arm. So that's a 60% velocity bonus. And if you were to place a targeting computer in there, namely level 5 is what I'm seeing the most of out there on the battlefield, you get another 30% projectile speed. So you're at a 90% projectile speed if you utilize those ERPPCs. Now, before I summarize everything for you guys, we still have one more omnipod to go through, and that is the Summoner left arm omnipods. So let's scroll through that list and see if there are any quirks that may apply and help this mech out even further out there on the battlefield, starting with the B variant left arm. And as we see here, we have LRM and SRM spread and velocity bonuses of 2%. But again, we aren't utilizing any missile hardpoints out there on the battlefield, so we're not even going to take this omnipod into consideration. The C left arm, we have ballistic cooldown, UAC velocity, and UAC jam chance bonuses, along with a structure bonus. Now, the structure bonus obviously would help us, but not from a weapon perspective. So we're not going to take this one into consideration either. As for the D variant, energy cooldown bonus of 5%. Energy cooldown, again, is a generic energy quirk that applies to any energy weapon that you happen to place on this mech, including the ERPPCs that we intend to use. So right now, that is the #1 option for us for the left arm omnipod. But let's run through the other 3 really quick. You have the F variant's left arm that gives us UAC range bonus of 5% and ER laser range of 5%. So we're not going to use that one because we're not using UACs and we're not using lasers, so we're not going to take that one into consideration. And the Prime variant has ballistic cooldown, LBX velocity, and LBX spread bonuses, along with that structure bonus. Now again, the structure bonus would help, but nothing relatable to the weapons that we're actually intending to take out there on the battlefield. And just like with the right arm, the left arm for the M variant is also the same as the Prime. So we also have the same quirk summary list that you found in the Summoner Prime left arm in the M variant left arm. So again, it's just catering to those, those ballistic hard points if we were to use those, and a little bit of structure bonus. So now, with that being said, we can conclude that we want to place the D variant's left arm on there to get that 5% energy cooldown bonus, which in total will give us a 30% energy cooldown bonus by using those ERPPCs between the Summoner Prime or M's right arm, the D left arm, and then the other omnipod that we again placed on there is the F right torso, simply to get those high mounted energy hardpoints in there. But now let's actually build this thing out. So let's hop over to the weapons here and place these 2 ERPPCs in those high mounted energy hardpoints. And then simply put, we're just going to fill out the rest of this mech with clan double heat sinks. So let's throw as many on there as we possibly can. It looks like we have 4 extra tons to work with here. So with that being said, we have 70 out of 70 tons being used, 61 out of 78 slots, 422 out of 434 armor. Now, one side note about that, before I even built this thing out, I had 0.4 armor that was just kind of sitting there. It wasn't applicable anywhere, so I just evenly distributed it amongst the legs and the head. So I took 4 armor hard points off each leg and then 4 out of the head so that I can round down to the nearest ton in order to fit another external double heat sink here. So that's the reason for the 422 out of 434 armor. We have a 1.51 heat management ratio along with 18 double heat sinks. 10 internal, 4 that you could see are placed on top of this Clan XL350 engine, and then the last 4 that I placed in the mech, ultimately summing up to 18. Now, as for firepower, as I mentioned, we have a 20-point alpha, only utilizing those 2 ERPPCs, 1 in each torso. It has a top speed of 91.1 kph with speed tweak. And last but not least, a jump distance of 37.6 with those pre-configured jump jets in the legs. So in total now, this thing is an absolute monster out there on the battlefield. It's got a completely different configuration than what people are used to using it for. And it's actually very, very beneficial for now Pop-Tart PPCing, because not only are you not having to cater to those low-slung arms, you have the high-mounted energy hardpoints here, so you're only exposing really this top, third of the torso here in order to get your shots off. And again, you have a quirk summary list that really benefits this mech astronomically. Between the energy range of 5%, your total energy cooldown now of 30%, energy heat generation bonus of 10%, and with this particular configuration, a 90% PPC velocity. This thing is an absolute menace out there on the battlefield. So essentially, it's the same build that we were all seeing out there on the battlefield, but now with more beneficial hardpoints and positioning of those hardpoints. But before we close up with a complete summary of this mech, there is one last thing that we have to do, and that is the modules. We have ERPPC cooldown and ERPPC range bonuses. So that just doesn't stop. With all the bonuses that we have, it just keeps getting bigger now. And we're going to save it like that so that you guys know exactly what this thing is going to be capable of out there on the battlefield. We have now energy range bonus with this PPC range module on there of 15%. We also had an energy cooldown bonus in total of 30%. Now you're stacking the ERPPC cooldown of 12% on top of that, so we have a 42% cooldown bonus, along with that energy heat generation bonus of 10%, and again, the grand total PPC velocity summary, 90%. So in total, what we're looking at is 15% range, 42% cooldown, 10% energy heat generation, and 90% velocity. This thing is a beast. And to top it all off, even if you were to lose these two components between the D left arm and the prime right arm, the quirks that apply to those two omnipods are not lost. They will still be applicable to those two ERPPCs in the torsos despite those components not being there. So you'll still have the velocity bonuses, you'll still have the cooldown bonuses, but essentially what you're doing is taking this same exact loadout of the two ERPPCs out of a weaker component in that arm at a more disadvantageous position, and you're placing it in a beefier, bulkier, tankier component in a very, very optimal position. So all in all, because of these two customer appreciation variants of the summoner, the M and the F, you now have a completely different perspective of how you can use the summoner out there on the battlefield, and it's actually beneficial to use. It might not have the huge alpha that you might expect in a heavy, but it does have a ton of quirks that like a laundry list that really make this thing an optimal use out there on the battlefield. So if you do actually want to see me do some rounds in this particular mech with this variant built out the way it is, I'm saving it and leaving it as is, and if you would like to see a couple rounds in it, let me know in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed the explanation and understanding one of the brand new meta builds out there. And I thank you guys so much for taking the time and running through this entire build with me so that I can explain to you exactly how one of these new meta builds works. I appreciate every ounce of support you've given me so far on the channel and everything, and hope that you enjoyed this quick tip today in MechWarrior Online. Thank you guys so much again for coming, for checking out the video, for supporting the channel, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next one. Take care, guys.